Okay, so I'm going to show everybody who's interested in doing the logo project how to get a simplistic initial file created. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new file, and I need to measure my board, so I'm going to do that now. So my board is 13 in that direction, and the width of my board is 18 in this direction. So 13 by 18 is my board size. Yours will be slightly different depending on how much milling you had to do and how many sticks you put into your board. Thickness, we're going to leave at 0.75. Our datum for this activity is going to be on the lower left-hand corner, and we're going to stay in inches. Okay, so for this, it's really easy. I'm just going to use the text tool, and I'm going to do, for my board, I'm just going to have initials, and I'm also going to include a shape with that. So for my shape, I'm actually going to do a rectangle, but before I do the actual shape around the text, I want to put the text in. So I'm going to click that. Now this may take a minute to start, so I'll just sit here and wait for it to load, the text tool. And I'm just going to do my initials on the board, so nothing crazy. You could do anybody's initials that you want to. Doesn't have to be yours if you're giving it away as a gift. And I'm just going to type in the initials, both capitalize, and then hit the apply button. And as it turns out, that isn't actually a bad size, but I want to move this onto the board. And then I can kind of mess around with it. So if you're not happy with what the text looks like, I could italicize it. Everything that you make change-wise, you'll have to apply. Nah, that's no good. But you can see I can change the attributes of that to whatever I like. We're going to leave it in center because we're going to place this someplace that is where you want it to go. Size-wise, I think I'm pretty good. However, if I want to change the size of the text, I can do that. Let's double it just so you can see, 2.0, and now it's way too big. I can go the other direction and say 1/2 inch, and that's a little too small. So I think 1 inch was good for my board. You can decide, the size of it. Don't make it too big because, again, we want to make sure that we have time to laser the project and it doesn't take, hours and hours and hours. The bigger the text is, the longer it will take the laser to do that. So that looks good to me. I can change the text itself. So there are so many. Most of these texts are overlapping texts. So you can see that a lot of them look very similar. They just have a slightly different size when you actually select that. So if we scroll up and we keep going up here, there's a lot of different styles of Gothic text, but a lot of them are they're very similar. In terms of that, just maybe they're a little closer together, so a little narrower. They might be a little more bold, narrower and bold, or smaller. So there are different things going on here with the Gothic text. You can see that they're all very similar in terms of that. There's more Gothic up here as well. Keep scrolling. A lot of these texts are the same, so you're not going to find a lot of major differences, and that goes all the way up to here. If I keep scrolling down, we end up in the alphabetical stuff. So let's just do Arial. Arial's kind of a font that can pop up sometimes. Again, you have to apply that, and I don't like that. It's too simplistic, and if there's something that you don't like, you can always edit. So I'm going to show you how to undo that so that you don't have to find the text you just used. You can simply say undo the edit of the text, and it will actually put you back, and it also restores the text that you were using, which in this case is the bell text. So you can see that that's there. So yeah, you can kind of mess around with this. I would recommend doing a text that has white space in the middle, so it's kind of something that looks like it could be filled in if it had to be. Some of these more scripty type of text are, well, as you can see, not really ideal for what we're doing here. And again, if you're like, oh no, I don't remember where it was, obviously it was the bell text, but I can use edit undo and it takes me back to where I was. So use that function if you end up kind of getting lost. So that looks good to me. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to surround the text with a box. So I'm going to go ahead and close that since I'm done with the text tool. And for this one, I'm just going to do a box surround like this. And I'm going to zoom in, so I'm going to roll my mouse. And that looks decent. You can kind of control it after, so I'm going to go ahead and apply that. That looks okay. And now I can click it twice, so 1 click, 2 clicks, and then I can start kind of bringing it in and cropping it more appropriately, so the gap between the top of the text and the box and the bottom of the text and the box is a little bit more acceptable. I'm really going to pull this one in so that it's close. So that looks okay there. I like that. And what I'm going to do, just to kind of highlight it just a little bit more, I'm going to do a second box around this box. So it's kind of going to be a double situation, if you will. I'm going to drop that down in there. We'll apply that and close that out. And then that looks pretty good. Now you may want to do some adjusting here, so you can do that. As you can see, I can adjust the gap so that it looks, appropriate, but it's pretty darn close, and I really kind of like that. That's a nice, simple logo. So now I'm going to just window around the whole thing by click and hold on the left. It'll select everything, and then all you got to do is just pick one of these, and then the whole thing can be put down. Now I'm going to place mine here, and I'm going to make sure that my gap is do not, especially if you have a juice groove, you're going to really have to calculate this, but you do not want to place your laser image close to the edge of this. Now this block that I just measured, it does not have a groove, and it's not going to have a groove. I haven't milled the corners yet, so I'm going to place this a decent amount of distance in so that it's off of the corner. I don't want it to be exactly up to the edges. Do not put it up to the edges of the board. That looks pretty good. And so I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and drop that there. Just click the mouse. And one of the things you can do is, if you're curious about the distance of where something is, you can actually draw a line. I'm going to zoom in so you can see it a little bit closer, and it gives you an idea of where things are in terms of their distance. So it's about an inch in that direction, and then you can also measure a length dimension from here to here. Just drawing a line approximately will give you an idea, and that's also about an inch. I'm not worried about these decimals here, so I've placed this about an inch in, and if I measure, I'm just going to measure that to see if I like where that's going to be on my board, and that's going to be acceptable. So about an inch, and you can follow that if you'd like to. You don't have to, though, if you don't want to. So that looks good to me. I'm going to close that out. You can click these and then hit the delete key on your keyboard. So just one click till they turn pink. And there you go. So there's a nice image that's going to get burned into the lower left corner of my board. You can put it in the middle. You can put it in the upper left. Really, you can put it wherever you'd like. And again, we're going to keep the size of it relatively small, though, and that is so that the laser doesn't run forever. You could maybe, I would say, if you wanted to double the size of that, you could, but that's about as high as we're going to go. And keep in mind, all designs have to be approved before I will run the laser program. Now, the next thing we're going to do here is we're going to switch over to the other side, to the toolpaths tab, and over here we're going to use a new toolpath today, and that is this one here called Quick Engraving Toolpath. So we're going to click that, and it automatically should select the tool called Engrave. If it doesn't, just go to the select, and just go in here and look for your engraving tool path. There should really only be one tool set for that. The only stuff that we're going to be changing here for this, because we're going to be following just the lines of it, so we're going to outline everything that's there. We just want to make sure of the following. We're going to make sure that our spindle speed is 16,000 RPMs, okay, RPMs. Our feed rate is going to be pretty slow at 5 inches per minute, because again, the laser is not very powerful. And then our plunge rate, the rate at which it raises and lowers the laser as it's going to do its stuff, should also be at 5 inches per minute. And then if those things look good, you're just going to hit OK. Now, this is where you're going to have to name your file something that makes sense. We're doing only outline, so do not select fill. That will cause the program to run forever, and it really doesn't look good. I do have a way for you to fill stuff in, but it's just, we're not going to use the laser to do that. All right, so outline is what we're after here. We are not worried about the nose cone situation, and everything else is preset with our save Z, and our home position is going to be 0.8, and that's when it stops doing the laser program. It will go to 0.8. Name it something that is going to make sense. So I'm just going to say this is my last name, and I'm going to use the word logo. And then for this one here, we have to go with the CNC USB ARCs inch in tap file. Normally, because we're using a laser, you would use the post processor laser. Your computers do not, I do not believe they have it. So you want to use the post processor of the CNC Shark USB 3D Contour, or this one can work too, CNC Piranha 3D Contour. So we just want to make sure that we have a 3D Contour inch dot tap file selected, whether it's Piranha or Shark, either one. And then you can hit the calculate to see what it's going to. Oh, we can't do that yet. Okay, we have to select the vectors. Now we can hit calculate. And so it shows where the laser is going to travel, and if you're interested in seeing sort of a preview, that's what it's going to look like on your board. So that's the wooden board right there, kind of, sort of. It's not the end grain. And there is my lasered, simple lasered logo of my initials. So there's that. Now you're of course going to need to, if everything looks good and the calculation looks good and you like what you see, you're going to have to go and save both the file, the Carve file, and you're going to save your tap file. So I'm going to go ahead and do saving of the tap file. I'm going to go to my Van Horn drive, and then I'm just going to go ahead and hit the save button, and that will save my tap file. So clicking save. Go, and then I'm going to go here and I'm going to go to file, save, and it's going to ask me where do I want to put that file. I want to put that in the Van Horn drive, and I also want to call that Van Horn logo. Now this is going to be a Van Horn logo CRV file, so you'll hit the save button and there you go. That is all you will need to do, and then I will ask you to drop off. So it is very important that you drop off both files to me. Both the tap file, which we created over here, and the CRV file, which we saved by using the file save over here. You have to do that because I need to have access to both files, all right? Once you get those saved, you should drop those both off in Google Classroom. And again, I'm asking everybody to do their last name and then the word logo. That will keep things easy and understandable so I know whose I'm working with. If you don't name your files in that particular order, I will ask you to go back, resave the files, and redrop them into Google Classroom. But that is how you create a logo of your name in the logo laser burning assignment.